Thank you and good morning, everyone, from wherever you're joining us from. Today, we are talking about mental health in cybersecurity context, and we have I'm very privileged to have a very diverse panel with us here today. One of the panelists is yet to get here, but hopefully he will get us well on our way. So first of all, I would like to introduce Amisa Rashid. She is she's a counseling psychologist and founder of Nivishe Foundation. She has been doing a lot of sessions and awareness around this. You can get her online at Amisa Rashid. We also have Doreen Kimondo, who is our HR here at ICRAL Innovation Hub. We have Michael Michia, the head of IT at Triple OK Law, and he's a great resource here, just joining the panel as part of the workforce. And last but not least, we have Cephas, who is the founder of Cyber in Africa. So just to get the session started, I would like us to start with the basics, which is what is mental health and how do we identify and cope with stress, anxiety, and pressure at work? Amisa, you have the floor.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Amisa Rashid. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession and founder of Nivishe Foundation that focuses on community-based mental health interventions. So we basically deal with the mental health, and what we try to do at Nivishe Foundation is basically trying to integrate the Western approaches of mental health, the academic ones, and try to integrate it with the local interventions, like in case a local mwananchi at the grassroots level has, or anybody per se has mental health challenges, they can be in a position to use available resources to take care of their mental health as they're waiting for professional support. So that is basically what we do at Nivishe Foundation. So when we're talking about mental health, how I like describing mental health is just in simple terms. I know there are a lot of definitions outside there, a very academic definition of mental health, but what is usually important is, this is how I describe mental health. Mental health is just three things. Like basically a human being is made up of three parts: the mind, the body, and the soul. So when your mind, body, and soul are at par with each other, that means that at equilibrium, they're balancing. That means that you're mentally healthy. And when they're not balancing, that means that you're mentally unhealthy, because our body, our physical self, our mental self, and our spiritual self usually work in sync. So if one is not in sync with the others, that means that there's something wrong that you need to check up. And then now after those three parts, now when you look at the mental aspect, the mental part is actually just divided into three parts, which comprise of our general mental health. That is our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So if you check up on your thoughts, on your feelings, and your behaviors, because they each affect each other, you find that at the end of the day, your mental health is healthy, because you find that most of the time our thoughts influence our feelings, or the vice versa, and they also influence our behaviors. So if you find that you're at a place whereby you're overthinking, or you are not thinking at all, you've reached a place whereby you don't care, that nonchalant attitude of not caring at all, so that means there's something that you need to look into. If you feel like you are at a place whereby your feelings are coming, like you are not in a position to control your feelings, that is minus the normal hormonal imbalances that you usually have, and you find that it is going to the extra mile, whereby maybe you overthink and then you feel so sad, which are maybe signs of some mental challenges. So you find that will make you, definitely means that you'll have a mental illness that you have to look into. Most of the time, nowadays you are trying to look in the psychological field, you are trying to look into mental politically accepted mental health, well, because we are finding that using words like mental illnesses or mental disorders are a little bit challenging, because a lot of people, it creates more stigma rather than breaking the stigma. So when I'm speaking about mental illnesses or mental disorders, I prefer using mental challenges, so that at least we try to understand it. So that is what I can give into the input of this question, but I will keep on exploring more and more and more, and I'll give my other panelists an opportunity so that we can learn from each other. So back to you.
Thank you so much, Amisa. So other than maybe Michael, you have something else to say? Doreen, do you have something to say? Introduce yourselves also. For the attendees, please raise your hand if you have a question, or just type it in the chat and we'll get back to you. Doreen?
Thank you, Shay. I have a few things to add on to what Amisa said. Thank you, Amisa. So this is Doreen, HR by profession, currently working at ICRAL Innovation Hub. So as Amisa said, mental health is a balance between body, mind, and soul. I would like to add on to that, it's a psychological and social well-being, where what is happening within your mind is going to affect your behaviors and your thoughts. And I know we always get sad days, which is normal at work, and also stressful days, stressful weeks, or stressful months. However, whenever it's prolonged and there's nothing that is external that is actually affecting it, that is when you're supposed to be aware of what is happening in your life and you realize it's actually more than the environment. I'd also like to say that mental health can be brought about by two things. It can be hereditary or it can be environmental. By hereditary, I mean that you can be something that is within the family, and mostly it's gotten from the mother's side. So it's always good to go and ask your parents, are there any relatives of ours who have this and this kind of condition, so that you know what you are predisposed to already. So you're able to take care of yourself before you get into a very dangerous position. Another cause could be environmental. So these are the things that are around us. This could be money, could be our jobs, could be school, could be past traumas or challenges that we've been facing within our life. This could be the reasons where we get the mental health issues. Another point that I think is very important is what we think mental health is. Whenever you hear of that mental health, the first thing most of us think about is what we call mathari, which is not right. Yeah, it is true, yes, but it is much more broader right now. And I'm glad it's something that's over the last few years we are now talking about, because all of us go through mental health issues because we are human. We do face different things every day. It affects all of us. So it can be a simple thing as anxiety, shame, depression, phobias. So these are all different aspects of mental health issues, which we now need to be aware of. And I believe during this session, we'll be able to delve into it and understand it more. I would say that would be my short introduction to it. Back to you, Shay.
Thank you, Doreen, for your input. Michael, Cephas, maybe you can just add a few items onto this question. What is mental health, and how do you identify and cope with stress, anxiety, and pressure at work? Michael?
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Yeah, so introductions, I'm Michael Meshi. I'm the head of IT at Triple OK Law. I think the definition of mental health has been done justice. And probably what I just want to add on to that is that it doesn't come about as a one-off. It goes through certain stages. And it's very important for everyone to know the stages so that they can see if people around them need help or they need help. So commonly just start off with stress. And again, this could be either caused due to either something hereditary or it could be environmental. And mostly within the workspace, we see to move from stress to chronic stress to burnout and eventually a mental checkout. So it's very important, of course, for people to look out for their colleagues at work, their friends, their family, to ensure if they notice any of these signs and find the appropriate way to approach them and address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Cephas, you have something to add?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Awesome. So this is Cephas Okoth, founder at Cyber in Africa. I'm glad to be here today to discuss this emerging and very important issue, not only in cybersecurity, but just in life generally. Again, mental health sort of definition has been very well put, but I'll go with the one for body, mind, and soul. Taking care of these three aspects really is about taking care of you as a human being, and I emphasize on the word being. I think that is really the essence of who we are, and having a balance across these aspects really centers you in a way that you can address or you can face challenges, which is typically what causes the imbalance and the instability in our daily lives, which impacts our minds, impacts our body, and definitely impacts our spirit and our soul. But then, just as an addition to all that has been said, I think there has to be emphasis on self-care, which I think is something we'll discuss in this process. Beyond identifying, beyond being aware, I think taking care of the body, mind, and soul really is what gives you that center and anchors you, grounds you to have that stability that can very well be an asset in terms of ensuring that the health of your mental is great. So hope that helps.
Thank you, Cephas, Michael, Amisa, and Doreen. We all know what mental health is, but it is good for us to just be on the same page so that we are aware of what exactly we are trying to tackle during this session. So I'd like to shoot this back to you, Cephas, as the founder and director for Cyber in Africa. And maybe I'll throw Michael in the works. How do you maintain healthy work-life balance? How do you avoid burnouts?
Well, firstly, it's hard to avoid burnout at some point. It's hard to avoid burnout. And then secondly, I think it's something you have to deal with it and manage it. And not only just burnout. I know Michael had indicated earlier sort of a process or stages through which you can get to a very bad place in terms of the health of your mind. It starts from small stresses, then it becomes a bit more chronic, then you get to burnout. There could be all those different phases. But for example, last year I actually had I had two breakdowns, right? During the heat of the COVID. There's a personal experience. I had two breakdowns. And the thing is that before I had the first one, I had no idea. That I was actually hurting myself. I was obviously putting in a lot of hours, spending a lot of time working, quote unquote, spending a lot of time looking at the screen and spending a lot of time just doing things that are putting a lot of pressure, considering times and deadlines and all that on myself. And when I got a breakdown, that's when I realized, whoa, you know what? I think I need to. I think I've reached a point where I'm totally burned out. I mean, I can't go from here. If I try to do it, I'm going to probably kill myself slowly. Yeah. So from at that point, I had to step up and just create that consciousness in me that this thing is real. Burnout and everything that comes with it is real. And when you get to that point where you're breaking down, it means that you need to stop, you need to take a pause and just create that consciousness, be aware of yourself, reflect, look back at how you got here. And I think that's an important question that I hope we can discuss here. The question of how did you get here? What happened to you? Those two questions. So there has been multiple other situations like those, breakdown here, burnout here, stresses here. It's really just essentially part of the life we live. So that brings me to my second point, that it's something that you have to manage. It's hard to avoid, but if you can avoid, that's great. The same way in cybersecurity, we say that it's an issue of when, it's not an issue of if. At some point, something bad is going to happen. Someone is going to attack you, even if it is a small threat. You're going to get it. So it's an issue of when, and obviously how you want to deal with it. How I've coped out with it briefly as I finish my submission is since the first breakdown I had last year, I chose to do a couple of things. One, I chose to take major breaks. Okay, I chose to take major breaks through the week and particularly over the weekend. So over the weekend, before that, I used to pretty much spend the weekend working, quote unquote. Sometimes you're probably not even doing important and urgent things, but there's always that urge that I have to be doing something. So I kind of stopped that. And whenever it hits Friday, 5 p.m., I shut everything down, and I'll spend the whole weekend doing other social, personal, and other activities. That really helped massively, just to sort of switch my mind slowly from the state of burnout. And then the other thing it did is I try to connect with people. When COVID came, I think most of us are spending a lot of time in-house, and we probably were not interacting as much in person and all that. So I chose to reduce the amount of, or maybe not reduce, but I chose to, on top of spending time connecting with my computer and work and all that, I intentionally decided to make time to connect with people. And this is what is called human-to-human connection, right? Albeit remotely or just via call or the conferencing platforms, but it really and massively helped. I remember I got my post-pay package, and I said, like, I'm going to call everyone in my phone book, So I started calling people from the top of the phone book. I'll scroll down and just look for someone, and just give them a call randomly, and I remember I must have done over 90% of the guys in my phone book. Those are a couple handles, and I think that really helped just to connect with people, strangers, people you've not met for years, and just have all those conversations. It kind of lightens, livens you up, and lightens the load that you have by trying to help your mind focus on other people's experiences as well, and you're not alone, and are struggling as well, and those kind of things. So I guess those two things I'll highlight as really the recent things that are really done to help me cope up with this whole mental health thing. Hope that helps. Hello, can anyone hear me?
It does, Cephas. It does. Michael, do you have anything to add on to that? As an IT professional, you're the head of IT at OK Law. So maybe you can just highlight how you maintain a healthy work-life balance, avoiding the burnouts. Maybe you can also tell us about how you would assist a friend who's going through such a situation.
Sure, thank you. I think first of all, one thing we have to acknowledge within the tech space, and of course also I see significantly more within cybersecurity, to be specific, there is a lot of stigma around mental health. First of all, these are high stressful jobs where you're protecting assets from both known and unknown threats, and you don't want to be the one responsible for any incident, or be the one responsible for not being able to recognize an incident when it happened, because you're thinking about your career. Could this damage your career? So it's a high stress environment. It's not talked about enough. I've seen quite a lot of burnout. I've also experienced burnout myself. And I've come to feel like it's not really a matter of striking our work-life balance. For me, it's a matter of figuring out what triggers you to move from stress, chronic stress, burnout to mental checkout. So what are the triggers? I guess everyone needs to probably just identify the triggers. And what I started doing earlier on was I would take notes of, if I find myself in a stressful environment, I'd note the time, what was happening then, and then I'd also note what had happened right before. Then after a few days, I look at what had happened before that stressful moment. Those were the triggers. And from there on, it was now a matter of how more safely, more conscious can I deal with the triggers. So you could come up with ways, whether it's a breathing exercise, or it's a stress ball, or it's simply walking, just getting off your workstation, moving about, whether it's taking an early break, talking to someone. We all have different ways of coping with stress. Once you identify the trigger, then we can reduce its effect on us, and that goes a long way. Secondly, I think finding out what you love doing just for fun is good, something which can put you in a state of flow, where you're sort of engulfed by that experience. Of course, this would have to be something that's not destructive. Of course, we want to do that by becoming a chronic drinker. For myself, I just play a lot of video games. That's one of the ways I deal with my burnout. I set aside sometimes even a whole day just to sit down, play a bunch of video games. And I find that works for me. So of course, yeah, we should always find a way to deal with those triggers. Probably just one last thing to mention before we move on is we should avoid, once you know what our trigger is, especially if the trigger comes from your thoughts. Sometimes it's not the best solution to move, like, okay, these thoughts are stressing me if I keep thinking about them. Sometimes changing environment doesn't help. So there's a common saying that a sickness in the mind cannot be cured by moving the body from place to place. So we should obviously try to find the right anti-burnout, or sort of like the right medicine for yourself that would suit how you would best navigate a situation where you feel like you're about to approach burnout or breakdown. And of course, also being open to your colleagues to talk to you about these things. Myself, I do have one person very close to me who normally calls me and just asks me mental check, and we have a long discussion about our mental well-being. And these are not planned calls. This could be random calls during the day. They could happen in weeks. They could happen several times in 1 week or a few times in a month. But it's important to have that one person you're able to communicate with at any time about probably it's your stress and your mental well-being. Thank you.
I like what you said about noticing what is triggering you, and actually noting down the time and the events that are happening or have just happened. And I think this, like you alluded to, is one of the best ways that we can catch stress early on and make the changes that we need to make. Yeah. Some of the other things that I really like that you mentioned, having a mental check buddy that you can literally just call in the middle of the day and, tell them what is going through in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a colleague, but it can be anyone within your circle, if I get that correct. So just moving on, I don't know if Amisa, you have anything to add on to this?
I think most of the things that I had were accurately explained, but just to add on, I think that the aspect of human to human touch, or having somebody who is a checkup buddy, whereby you can they can check up on you and you can check up on them anytime, any day, is very, very crucial and very, very important. And it also, the importance of it is that your buddies, your checkup buddies for mental health checkups should be in a position to know whereby they can be listening to you and offering advice, or just offering a shoulder to lean on, or opening up the space for you. But they should also be able to know when you really need professional support and be able to guide you there. So because most of the time, as much as we would want, like in most cases, like our buddies are there, most of the time, if you find that you personally have mental health challenges, the best thing, remember that when I'm using mental health challenges, I'm trying to avoid using words like mental health disorders or mental illnesses. So you find that when you have that depression, like clinical depression, like that your checkup buddy can be there for you, but they cannot offer the professional help that you want. They'll just be listening, because healing psychologically, it's a process, and you have to have a healing plan and all, like a profession to walk you through. So even at a personal level, you need to know which level am I going to reach out to my body to check up on me, or I check up on them, and which time do I need to go to a professional person or a mental health practitioner to offer me the necessary support that I need to get through. Also, the other thing that I just wanted to highlight is that when it comes to self-care, there is this current bandwagon of self-care where everybody is just talking about how important self-care is. And I'm really championing, because we need self-care at the end of the day, but we need to be really, really careful when it comes to choosing self-care, because self-care, burnout, and all these things, it goes back to personal decisions. Like I am triggered differently compared to another person, how they're triggered. So the best thing for me to do is to become self-aware, to know what are my triggers, to know what is the best way that my body, like to know which is the optimum level that my body can reach and then have burnout, and how can I support myself from this burnout without just seeing, okay, the best thing that people are doing outside there are getting those colorful coloring book and coloring them, or journaling, or going on hikes. You have to, like, it's a personal responsibility to be so much acquainted with yourself to the extent you know yourself, so that you know, if I reach this point, that means I may end up having burnout. So I need to step down or step back. And if I do this, it will help me rejuvenate and take care of myself. So like at the end of the day, just self-care, because as much as burnout and all these things are homogeneous whereby we experience them, but they're different to everybody. The way I heal, the way I do my self-care, the way I get access to mental health treatment, or the way I take care of myself is different. So at the end of the day, when you're taking care of yourself, we have to be acknowledging self-awareness so that we can give ourselves the best treatment or the best services that we can. Thanks.
Maybe when you're still on the topic, could you tell us what are some healthy coping techniques that we can use both at home and at work?
There are general ones, but individually one has to go back and see. For instance, one of the best coping techniques that I usually say is introspection. Like you really need to go back to yourself. Let's say, especially in the cybersec world, you really need to go back to yourself. And because a lot of people in this cybersec work are usually like workaholic, like I'm sorry to say that, but it is what I have experienced with working with individuals from this field, is that it's all about work. And as much as it is fulfilling, you have to go back and do self-introspection. What works for me? What is driving me? Is it positive driving or is it negative driving? Are my coping mechanisms healthy or unhealthy? So you really need to, the first thing is, because as much as you would want like to have different ways, coping mechanism and all those kind, but if you just take what is it called? You have a good example, the parable that I usually give is like you have a wound, and then instead of just checking where the wound came from, like imetoka wapi, like did I cut myself? How was I injured? You just take a list, what is it called? A elastoplast, and just put it on the wound without even looking at it. It might heal, yes, but it won't give you the necessary healing process as much as you take the process to know, okay, where did this wound come from? Can I be able to prevent myself from hurting myself such a way again in future? Can I be able to clean it? Was it cut by a sharp or a blunt object? So like you try to analyze it so that when you are healing it, you trying to heal it, you'll know the process to go about it. So it's the same with the self-care and burnout and mental health. Like you really have to go internally and think, if I'm having irrational thoughts that gives me anxiety and fear, let's say like I'm so scared of what is it called, not performing well in work, not being productive. Why am I having those irrational thoughts? Is there a way that I can work either with a professional or myself to make sure that I'm moving from the aspect of having irrational thoughts to rational thoughts? In psychology, like if you're working with a counseling psychologist or a mental health practitioner, it's called REBT, whereby they just rational, emotional theory, whereby they work with you to make sure that you start developing like rational thinking instead of sabotaging yourself, thinking negatively about yourself, beating yourself up, thinking negatively about yourself. So the first thing is usually introspection and self-awareness. And then the second thing is you can decide now after self-awareness or introspection, the best thing for me like to get out of this is maybe to be journaling every day, to put, because I have so much thoughts in my mind, the best thing will be for me to like write them down and just look at my thoughts and use it to measure my patterns and behaviors to know how do I usually behave in a period of this time and this time. Another aspect will be like grounding. That is actually very, very important. Grounding is the essence of just finding a good like green place, whether it's hiking or just a green place, Karura Forest, Arboretum, and just walking barefooted or just taking time out in nature, which is very, very essential because, as I said, our mind, body, and soul are interconnected. And the good thing with the nature is that it gives us it has the three healing components at the same time. Another aspect will be actually, you see the normal things that you usually tell ourselves: eat on time, eat healthy, drink a lot of water, avoid alcoholic drinks, caffeinated drinks, all these things. Like the basic cliche things that we are usually told in order to keep ourselves healthy are the things now you should think of incorporating them in your lives because they are that important. But because we see them It's a cliche. I feel like most of the time I'm told drink enough water, keep hydrated, don't do this, don't do this. But it's so important to integrate them in our day-to-day life, because at the end of the day, as I say, as I keep on repeating, our body and mind and soul are connected. So if you take care of your body, physical health, that means that your mind and soul will also be healthy. So if I've missed something, I welcome any of my panelists to chip in and learn from each other.
Thank you so much, Amisa. I think what I'm also getting from the self-care and introspection is mindfulness. I think we should learn how to empty the stressful thoughts. And I think that is also something that Michael and Cephas have mentioned or alluded to. And by emptying these stressful thoughts, it can also help us to stay in balance and make time to understand how we feel, and also, like you said, listen to our mind and body. So just moving on, I don't know if there's any panelist who has anything else to chip in.
Hi, Shay. I have a few points to add on to that.
Okay.
So I think physical health is also something very important for us to make sure that our mind is also healthy. So by physical health, I mean you need to physically keep active. This is through exercise. Doesn't mean you have to go to the gym every day for you to be physically fit. You can do it in the house. You can leave the house, go for a walk, maybe to the supermarket, to the banders down there, do at least 2 kilometers and come back. Or maybe over the weekend, you can go to Karura, enjoy a nice walk, take a road trip. So I believe physical health is really important to mental health. And also it can also help you avoid a lot of lifestyle diseases. When people you're physically active, it does produce positive hormones that help your mind feel better, feel happier. So even when you go back to your screen to do your work, you're going back to your screen happier and healthier as you do that. So it's really good to add a physical exercise or physical training in what you do. Maybe it can reach every 2 or 3 days in a week. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing. It doesn't have to be very intense. It can be something you do for 30 minutes in the house, skip a rope. Another thing that I know that helps me a lot is to plan your week or plan your day. What I normally do every Monday morning, the first 2 hours or maybe 1 hour in the morning is I do a to-do list or a checklist for the week. That these are the 5 things I need to make sure by the end of the week they are achieved. The following week on Monday, what I'll do also is look at last week's list. Did I achieve it? Yes or no? If I didn't achieve it, how can I achieve it this week, or what were the challenges that I faced? So having a plan doesn't have to be only for work, can also be for your personal things. So having a plan helps you to declutter your mind, I would say that, so that you don't have so many things bombarding you, especially people, for us who are in the cybersecurity industry, there are so many things that are always coming up, new technologies. So you always want to learn something new and keep up with the systems that you already have. So always have a plan and say, probably for Monday to Wednesday, this is what I plan to achieve. For the things that always come up, which they always do, I can always slot them in, not just having taking in whatever is being thrown at you by your colleagues, by people at home, by your friends. So stick to a plan, have a plan, stick to it as much as you can. That always helps. Another thing I would like to add on to that is keep informed. I really like where we are as a generation, as the whole country. We are now acknowledging mental health as something that affects us, and we are going out there to get information about how can we notice that we're actually being affected, how can we cope with these issues. So keep informed. You can always talk to your friends, talk to professionals who can help you cope with these issues. So amassing as much information about the issues that are affecting you is always something good, something positive for yourself. And also keeping informed means getting to know yourself better. As I said before, it's always good to know your what is it called? Your genetics, from your background, your parents, what is their health status, and also to understand your environment that you are in, understanding your triggers, things that actually make you happy, feel at peace. So it's always good to go back, sit down, close off the world for a day or for a few hours, get to understand who you actually are as a person, not as a brother or a sister or a mother or a father. Who are you as an individual? Because without understanding yourself, you will not be able to fill all your other requirements to the world. Yeah, and then the last point would be to prioritize your time. I know we live in a sector that is really fast-paced, that even at midnight you can be called and you're asked, you need to do this, and you have to actually wake up because you are protecting a lot of data that is very critical, very sensitive, so you still have to do it. But as we try and maneuver our time around that, prioritize your time. If it's time to close your laptop, leave the office, do that. Don't feel like you are indebted into into your work, because you're still a human. You need to go and live your life, live the social life. So plan your time, prioritize your activities at work, your activities at home. I think with that, Shay, I would hand it over to you or to the other panelists if they have anything to add.
Thank you, Doreen, for your insights on this. We have a question in the chat, and I'll throw it.
Let me check your CV.
Sorry for that. So where was I? Oh yeah, so there's a question in the chat. Amisa, maybe you can tell us whether drugs and substances trigger mental health as a counseling psychologist in the panel.
Okay. So when it comes to drugs and substance abuse, drugs can either trigger or could be the reason of mental illnesses or mental challenges. So what happens with drugs and substance addiction is that it comes from a space whereby as an individual, people who are usually, and that is why I usually say like, it's really a journey when you see that people who are trying to come out of drugs and substance addiction, going through rehabilitation center and trying as much as they can at the personal level to maybe the drugs that they're engaging with has actually affected their life personally, their physical health to the extent that they want to stop it. But drugs and substance addiction actually trigger, but this is the catch. People tend to use drugs and substance addiction most of the time as leisure, which is very common in Kenya. But most of the time, there's a thin line between leisure and developing into addiction. And a lot of people are usually outside there addicted with especially alcohol, but they don't term themselves, they don't deem themselves addicted because they think that addiction, in order for somebody to be addiction, you need to be like so much drunk to the extent that you're laying there on the ground, or so that is the level of addiction. But addiction has different levels, and one has to actually know more about addiction to be able to know whether they are at that which level of it. But when it comes to mental illnesses, you find that if, let's say, I've gone through a traumatic experiences in the past and I've not taken, or fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't, unfortunately, that is, I've not gotten any mental health support for somebody to help me go through the traumatic experience, you see that automatically I'll try to do what? If my mind cannot try to, my mind, like the neuroscientific aspect of it cannot do automatically to make me forget the painful experience, I'll end up using substance and drugs so that I can tend to forget some experiences or some thoughts, or just not thinking about things that I'm trying to avoid, or to numb the pain that I'm feeling. So that is the essence. So you find that that is phase one, I'll use drug. so that I can numb the feelings. But another time, for the people who are trying to avoid drugs, they get what? They get triggered. How do they get triggered? Let's say I've stopped, I used to take drug, that is, but then I stopped it, because you cannot get triggered with drugs if you had not started it before, unless your parents, like it's in your genetically composition that somebody in your family was abusing or was using drugs. So you'll find that for you, it will be very easy for you to get addicted or to get triggered to use drugs compared to another person. But apart from that, you see that other people will tend to use drugs when they are triggered, but that is after a period of whereby they've been using and then they stopped, and then there was something happened. It's usually called a relapse, whereby you just find yourself, something has happened and you're back to it and it's worse than before. And it's not only with drugs and substance addiction, it also happens with the, what is it called? It also happens with all types of things that you're trying to, it also happens with dieting. It also happens if you don't look at the core reason, the introspection part, or working with the mental health practitioner, you'll find that you'll try to stop it at a time. And then if you are not consistent, or you get the trigger or the relapse, you'll go back to it affecting you again from the word go. It also goes with all the types of addiction, pornographic addiction, sex addiction, all these kinds of addiction. So at the end of the day, you really have to know that addiction, whether it's drugs or substance or any kind of addiction, yes, you can get triggered to continue with it while you had already stopped it, and it's normally called a relapse. I hope I've answered it well, as expected.
Yeah, I think the person is satisfied. So you've talked about therapy, and you said it is very important for one to acknowledge themselves first. And, you know, when you're doing that, possibly consider professional help. So talking about therapy, would you recommend for children to attend therapy at a young age? And also, could you also address how most adults are also healing from childhood traumas? And I'll open this to the panel to if there's anyone who needs or has anything to share. Amisa?
Okay, thank you for the question. So therapy is for everybody. It's like usually what I usually say. You can take your kid to get physical treatment, or they're having physical ailment, and you take them for that the hospital to get checkup, consultation. So the kid is also, as long as your kid an adult to any physical treatment, that means that you can also offer them what is mental treatment. You see, so because it is very, very important, it's that we are coming, Kenya and Africa in general, we are coming from, even the world actually, we are coming from a place of prioritizing so much physical illness to trying and inculcating also the aspect of putting importance to our mental well-being. So a child, and you know, the good thing is that the same way for physical treatment, you have pediatricians who can take care of children. For mental health, there are also people who have specialists. So there are different specialization of counselors and mental health practitioners. There are ones who are specialized in child care or childhood training, youth, adolescents, trauma, loss and grief, relationship. Like it's you as a person to decide, okay, I'm going through this and I need this mental health practitioner to help me. It's the same way when you're having physical ailments and you know it's born or it's something that deals with cancer, you know, like this is the specific doctor that I'm going to seek their services. So it is the same with mental health. You need to accustom yourself to know which doctor or which practitioner can support me well in this. So the good thing is that there are mental health practitioners even for children. And one thing is that most of the time when you're speaking about mental health, when we tend to remove kids out of the, we assume that kids mental health support is for adults, because kids are total, like they won't go through the same impact or effect that it has caused me. A good example is when you're going through loss and grief and you've lost a family member, close family member. Attention will be given to adults compared to the kids, because we will assume that for the kids, their kids, it hasn't really gotten into their mind, but not knowing that not healing or not addressing this that has happened at a younger age tend to affect how a person behaves in future, tends to how a person led with a lot of things in their adulthood life. Like you find that a lot of people have different what's called fears, or they cannot, like, let me give you a good example that I usually say of childhood trauma. And when you're talking about childhood trauma is not, I usually say trauma is not homogeneous. The way I experience trauma is not the same as the person has experienced trauma. I may be knocked out by an accident at the road, so that is traumatic for me. To me, maybe I lit a fire and then just a candle and then it burnt me. That may be traumatic to me. So I think we are also at a level whereby we need to demystify our understanding of trauma, because for us, most of the people are trauma, a very bad event that has happened, but not knowing that trauma, it can be little to me, it can be little to me, but so experience different. So the example, let me tell you how trauma affects our life. For instance, let's say my traumatic, that's a traumatic, maybe because the teachers or the guardians don't understand their personality or their temperament. So like they're very naughty, they're very outside there, or the people don't understand the psychosocial stages of growing up. So you find that when somebody's okay, so like let's say if people don't understand the psychosocial aspect of bringing kids up, or their temperaments or their personality type, you see that they start saying, okay, this kid is naughty, this kid, and they keep on insulting them. Like you find a teacher will say, if you had performed, like maybe you're saying even words like you're very stupid, you're very what, you cannot pass in your exam, you're an maker. You see, those words that we tell to these kids, without knowing them, they're traumatic and they end up causing a scar internally. So you find that as an adult, how is this person affected? This person, you find that they're constantly sabotaging themselves. They may get good job opportunities, but you find that they cannot keep the job because at the back of their mind, at the subconscious mind, those words have been implanted into them. So they keep on believing, I'm not good into it. They'll try something once. If they fail in it, I'm not good into it, because there is that constant reminder at the back of their mind that I was told I was not good. I was told that I was stupid. I was told that I was a noise maker. I was told that I can't achieve anything in life. So even those things, for as long as something has scarred you, whether you know it or you don't know it, that's a traumatic experience. So you have, and your body keeps scores. So whatever has been input in your body or in your system won't go until you decide to address it. So imagine it will be affecting you all your life. You find that somebody keep on sabotaging themselves, they self-sabotage. Like they may end up doing a project and you guys, you know that they have so much potential, but they don't believe that they have any of the potential. Like they have so much negative self-talk. That is because something happened when they were young and it was not addressed. So this also goes back to self-awareness and introspection. How can I be in a position to know that I'm doing things which are okay? And how can I be able to accept feedback from others and actually analyze the feedback that I've gotten from my peers or colleagues or people who are close to me, and realize, okay, maybe I may be having a challenge into this area. Maybe I'm sabotaging myself too much. So I need to get some support to see how I can go through it. Because with one thing about traumatic childhood experience that have not been addressed, you find that you'll be experiencing it throughout the life. Another example, just one before I give it to another panelist to add on. Let's say the victims of gender-based violence. The whole of this week and last week, I've been addressing a lot of issues on gender-based violence. And you find like in our work, sometimes you will rescue somebody from an intimate violence relationship whereby they're being abused by their intimate partners, whether it's male or female. But you find that even after rescuing them, just a small thing that the intimate partner who had been abusing them throughout, they'll go back to the relationship again. So with that issue, like you can't say, like from coming from a psychological understanding, you can't actually blame the person, because it's the aspect of that, like I'm used to people harming me, the trauma, I'm used to living with traumatic experience. In order for me to be heard, I need to be abused. So you find that if this person calls me, since I don't know anything better apart from abuse, that means that I'll going back to that, what is it called? The same environment, the same way with the people who tend to be harassed or what. You find that as much as you will rescue them and you'll offer them safe spaces, but if they've not accepted the fact that they need a safe space, they need healing, they need to address the negative self-talk and the how they view themselves, saying that they should be, that they're no longer worth it, so that they need to be hit all the time, so be abused emotionally to make sense out of their life. If they don't accept that and try to address that at a personal level, you won't be in a position to thoroughly support them, because at the end of the day, they'll go back to the same environment. So you see, that is the essence of trauma. Any traumatic experience, whether if you got it from a younger age or an older age, if you don't address it, the body keeps scores. It will keep on haunting you until the day you'll address it, and it won't come out as traumatic event. It will become out as how your life will be different, how you'll be sabotaging yourself, how you'll be negative talking yourself, how you'll be criticizing yourself, hating other people. It will just come out with different behaviors. So back to you and to the other panelists to add on. Thanks.
Panelists.
Yes,
I think Amisa has talked a lot. Karibu Cephas.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just I could probably have a should I address that question for children first, or can I give general submission?
You can talk about how childhood, maybe you have had a childhood trauma, or you know someone, and how has that has affected them, and then you can also address it from a general perspective.
Okay. Because I wanted to also address some things that were said earlier, but well, I don't know about children per se, but what I do know is that, like exactly what Amisa said, children have stresses, children have the traumas, children have the pressures, and in our normal cultures, these are not addressed because I think all of us who are old enough would know that the kind of parenting we've received is not one with open communication where you can talk things with your parents, and you can walk through, or they can walk you through the various happenings in life. So I think that is obviously there. For me personally, I always, when I was growing older, I wish that I had that open communication. One thing I know for me is that guess I've been lucky in a sense. I sort of matured early because of my older brothers and sisters, which can be the same for many of us out here. So that really just gives you a sense of observation. You can look around and make sense of things earlier on. And as you grow up, you join the dots, you get more information, you get more awareness, and then you are able to walk yourself through. Even if you don't have someone else, you can be able to, using that newfound understanding, you're able to walk yourself through as to the why and the what happened, earlier on. But I totally do think that if kids can get help, if not from the parents or immediate relatives, I think really seeing someone is an important thing, and that's why good schools have counseling psychologists like Amisa who are resident. They have counselors who kids can go talk to. That's something that is not in our public education system, which I would guess majority of us went through. So that's definitely a missing component. But overall, I guess how to really handle this whole situation. Not only, mental health is one thing, but then we always have the what, the why, the how, and all those things. The two questions I asked earlier, what happened to you, and how did you get here? I think those are very fundamental and important questions for you to, as has been said before, try to build that awareness or that consciousness of what has gotten you to where you are, and how and what happened. How did it happen? What happened? Probably just to mention a couple of things from previous talking points. One, I'd say, from an anxiety perspective, a personal experience, I think two things we need to focus on, or rather, I would recommend someone to focus on. One is to try and minimize your expectations, first of life in general. Try and minimize your expectations, really. Someone say that expectations is the beginning of all heartaches, right? And as another person said, the famous boxer, can't really, Mike Tyson, yes, he said that you always have a plan until you get punched in the face. And we know life, you'll always build a plan and then you get punched in the face over and over and over again. And that really means that your expectations will, keep changing. You might probably many a times not meet the expectations or the goals that you had set. So really managing those expectations, minimizing them as much as possible, I suggest can really help to keep you in check in terms of anxiety, so that in case anything doesn't go as expected, it's something that you already sort of expected. You already put left space for that to happen. And I normally say this, that it's great to have a plan, but you must leave space for life to happen, because life always just happens. It has a way of creating humor out of the things that you give it. Things that just keep changing. So being able to manage that from a mental perspective and also from a practical perspective, I think can really help. Probably the other thing I'd say is, I think we're all here, all of us, to live, really. And one of the big advice, and I know we have a HR professional in the room, is that work is not your entire life. We spend 2/3 of our lives working, but as much as it's a big percentage, it's not your entire life. So you have to know that a life is everything, really, including work, and being intentional about trying to experience all the different aspects of the different components of life. I think is important, and not that there are no stresses or triggers or the worst case scenarios in all of those aspects. It's only that you become a whole person when you're able to experience the different aspects. So what I'm getting to is that I think there's a sense to which I personally have come to value life as a whole, and not as a sum of the different parts. Just value life as a whole. And that how that has helped me is to focus on the bigger picture. Focus on the big picture and let the details take care of themselves as much as you're working on them. And then another thing is just take it easy. I don't want to use this phrase, but it's a common phrase that is used. It's never that serious. It's never too serious. And I think we all say that life is already too serious. So we never need to be serious in many different things. Point is just take it easy. You're here for a season, you're here for a time, you want to have a good one. So try and take it easy, try and relax. If it means slowing down, slow down. But importantly, just never make it too serious, because I guess what you'll really remember at the end of the day is how well we went through life. So again, try and spend time with yourself, which has been very well emphasized. Introspect, meditate, mindfulness, and all those nice things. I think just try and spend time with yourself. And one thing that Amisa had said about introspecting, it made me thought about how important it is for all of us to try and be deep. Yeah. It's a common thing that we normally say that, you hear someone say something, we read something and say that's deep. I think that's something that we can practically live by, being deep into ourselves and being deep in terms of how we analyze life, how we approach life. It involves the things that Amisa had said, that it's not just about covering the wound with a plaster. Try and figure out what happened. How did I get here? How do I avoid this and that mistakes, or how do I deal with that going forward? So being analytical in this sense is really important, and breaking things down into very smaller pieces that you can easily approach and deal with. And I think that's also another important aspect. Having clarity is really, really important for you to understand what has led you to where you are in terms of your condition of mental health. So breaking things down into smaller chunks is really, really important. Sit down, whether it be journaling, talking to someone, find whatever framework, whatever process that can help you to crush everything into smaller pieces, and then you sort of handle them one by one as you go. I know it sounds a lot. It's a struggle really to do this. Funny thing is that I laugh about how we know all these things are important, but then it's really just difficult to be able to put these things into our daily ordinary life. But again, as much as possible, I think we need to try. As I finalize, I think it's great to try and face things head on if you can. Most of the time, just try to face that anxiety, try to face that stress or that stressor. Face your fears if you have those. Just talk to them, talk back to those fears, talk back to those anxieties, talk back to those things that trigger you into bad mental states. Try to talk them back, talk back at them with a lot of positivity, with a lot of affirmations, and that can really, really help. So just face them. What's the worst that can happen? Well, you can get better. You can have more confidence in yourself in terms of handling these things, in terms of approaching them. You increase your courage of whatever fears can come, because you know who you are. You can face them. You have the courage and the stamina to face them. I hope that will help. And then lastly, again, try and just go with the flow. I know it gets tough, it gets difficult. If it gets to a point where you need help professionally and otherwise, try and go with the flow of life. And like I said earlier, it's important to allow space for life to happen. And life might just surprise you with what it has in store. So, Shay, having said that, I hope that all these things can help all of us to lighten the load of the health situations that we have, and knowing that all of these negativities and everything would be there, but hopefully all this can lighten the load. And probably just one more thing, if you can, try and believe in a higher power, try and believe in God, spend some time in prayer. I think that vertical connection is really important, and it just gives you the supernatural power that you can need to handle the things out here. So thanks, Shay.
Thanks to Cephas. I don't know if Michael has anything to say, but as he prepares himself to say something, I just wanted to note that I recently heard of a school here in Nairobi, Garden Estate,
that is actually having, it's a primary school, but they are actually introducing counseling sessions for the kids. And I found it very interesting because, you know, growing up, we did not have such opportunities, and we are now seeing how this can affect us, you know, from unhealed childhood traumas and dealing with our childhood traumas. And hopefully they will become better people as they continue to grow up and be the young adults that, you know, they are going to be. I also like that you mentioned that, you know, break things down when you feel overwhelmed. Personally, I suffer from anxiety, and yes, anxiety is real, and I feel very overwhelmed sometimes. And some of the things that I do, like you mentioned, Cephas, is, you know, breaking those things down and trying to figure out what is coming first. Doreen also alluded to this, where she said, you know, make a plan for it. If you plan to do it this week, then do it. Try not to procrastinate. And by the time next week is coming through, you will already have, you know, either done part of your to-do list, or you know, you have somewhere to start, and you know, you can easily track some of the items that you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, Shay, good point there. Besides just the clarity, you've made me thought about the aspect of order. You know, there's a sense to which order just helps you to manage whatever comes. I think that's something we need to emphasize, and it really involves the common disciplines, right? Showing up on time, not procrastinating, putting in the time that you have to put in for something, making something happen and getting it done, and then moving on to the next. It's the typical, normal, personal self-development, leadership development practices. And what that does, obviously, it helps you manage the burden moderately as you go. You know, there's a sense of stability to how your time is, to how you manage your workload or life load. So I think that's the aspect of order is really, really important. And probably just to give a high level example, God is an orderly person. For those who are Christians, God is an orderly person, and the sense to which order balances out everything in nature, I think is a lesson for all of us to try. And if, as much as possible, we can't practice all of the good practices, let's try and always reflect and always get back to order, so that we have this grounding that can help us to manage and the different negativities that can trigger mental health issues.
Thank you, Cephas. Michael, do you have something to add? Doreen, also, do you have something to add? Yeah.
So just to recap on what you've said about schools now introducing counseling, and I've also seen a few cybersecurity firms or organizations actually go beyond just, of course, when organizations are setting up a security operations center, it's quite for geeks, it's quite an amazing thing to watch all the tech being put up, the large screens, all the new devices, everything, the softwares. One thing I noticed that's happened, first time I saw it was 2018, was they actually built a room that was soundproof, and all the walls were padded down. So, okay, just so to make it soundproof, but also that no one could harm themselves. There was a few balls in there, and you could go in there and just lock yourself in and scream your heart out. Just get a moment to breathe and collect yourself, then go back to work. And I was like, well, that's one step in the right direction. I think employers now should also actually start considering, in terms of staff welfare and staff well-being, is providing therapy or counseling for staff members on a regular basis, providing maybe webinars and courses that people can learn about mental health. It's also very important. I think this also goes to the well-being and the protection and the safety of the staff. So it should be something that should be encouraged, that whether it's going to be part of your insurance, whether it's just something which on a case-by-case basis that it happens with the organization, because in the event that an employee has had a traumatic experience, more than just sending you flowers or wishing you well soon and financial support, there can also be that emotional and mental support, which can be given either through a licensed practitioner if you need to see a therapist, and they could take up that responsibility, because the mental well-being of staff is also sort of the mental well-being of the organization. If you could imagine a cybersecurity firm where all the guys working there are stressed out of their mind. I'm sure one day when that place burns down, it burns down in seconds. So I think it's something which we should encourage employers to start talking about more openly, because if the employer removes the stigma, then the staff will follow soon. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Doreen, as the HR at ICREL, I hope umepata hizo hints, eh? I don't know what your take is. I don't know what your take is on the matter.
Should I add my points? I should speak about the rooms or therapists in the organization.
As you please.
Okay.
But maybe bring it from an organization perspective, the workforce. I'm seeing a lot of our colleagues are also here on this chat.
All right. So as I speak on that, mental health at the workplace, mental health, yes, it affects us as a society, but first and foremost, it affects us as an individual. I once read a quote somewhere that they say that no one is coming to help you. So you need to be the one to stand up for yourself first, for the whole society to be able to help you. You first need to identify your problem as an individual, accept it, yes, first of all, be willing to accept the help. And also, and that's where now you'll be able to get help from the society or from the different counselors. That is from an individual perspective, because if you continue saying that every single day I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I have all these fears, but there's nothing you're doing about it, you're going back home being by yourself, it'll be hard for people to assist you. Yes, I know it may be hard to get out of that cocoon that you are in, but taking the first step is always the hardest. From there, it gets easier. Reach out to maybe a close friend, but it's always best to reach out to a counselor, especially if the problem is really huge. Once you do that, the process normally flows. Maybe within a month or two, you're able to now speak about it without so much hurt and so much anger. So take the first step, take initiative from yourself, reach out for help. Even though you don't want to do it face to face, you can do it online with people you trust. Now bring it into to an organizational point of view. I believe what I spoke about, planning your time, having a schedule that you actually follow, is important. It gives you a sense of purpose at work. Shows that your work is actually being appreciated by your colleagues or by the organization that you're working in. And also having safe spaces, which I believe we have here. We have different playrooms that people go over, their free time when they want to relax, and they play with the games that are up there. And so I believe we are doing a good job in putting our employees first. We also have a lot of flexible schedules where people are able to work from home. They're able to come in to the office within reason, at a bit late and leave a bit early within reason. but without taking advantage of it. So I believe we are actually putting our employees at the forefront. Also acknowledging the challenges that we are having, what is as a company, but as a country and as a world with the pandemic. But I believe we are doing what we can and what is best for the organization and for the employees. I believe I've handled that part, Shay. Secondly, what I would want to talk about is how we've spoken about triggers a lot, but maybe someone doesn't understand what that means or how to identify them. So maybe that's a question I could push back to the other panelists, and I'll also try and answer it to the best of my knowledge. So how you can identify these triggers. So maybe, so one, maybe I can give it in form of a story. One of mine, I really don't like to be under constant pressure, especially in large groups. So I knowing very well if I have maybe a deadline that is due on Friday, probably Thursday will not be the best time to be near me. So I know that is a pressure for me. And especially if this pressure entails a large group of people, that will be worse. So I noticed, so when I know that is a trigger for me, what I'll do is probably make sure I have whatever is due on Friday ready by Wednesday. So that on Thursday, all I have to do is just go over it, make sure it's ready by Thursday evening. I avoid that last minute rush. So, so how I got to realize that is that, how I got to realize that was that week or that couple of days to the deadline, I would sleep a lot. And I realized that is a trigger for me. And that is how I got to identify that, pressure and deadlines actually affect me a lot. So I would wake up in the morning, I would feel very cloudy in my head, my eyes would hurt. So I realized there's a change in my physical being. And I was not sick, there was nothing wrong with me. But I realized this is my body reacting to what is happening around me. And that is a trigger for me. And I realized, okay, now you're feeling like it's like this. So for that, you need to get a remedy, step out of what you're doing, take some time off, seek help from someone. So how you identify these things is how you are as a person when things are okay. When things are okay, so what you need to identify is when things change, what exactly has changed in your life at the time for you to face when you're facing a particular challenge or a particular difficult time in your life. What are these things that are actually changing in your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health also? So that's how you get to identify these triggers. So you need to be really in tune with your body, with your soul, with your spirituality, with your mentality. And I think probably the other panelists would also share how you get to identify these triggers. Thank you. Back to Shay. Hello.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you,
Yeah.
Doreen. I think for me, some of my triggers are, like I mentioned, having too much to do and feeling overwhelmed, Also, I think, the fear of being judged, of being criticized, teased, being put down. Sometimes, we are living in the pandemic era, so financial problems are also there. Being yelled at, for example, I have a child who mentioned to me that, what, auntie, don't yell at me, I don't like it. So I know that when I'm talking to that particular child, they are, I need to be a bit gentle, even if they're on their own. And also being around, I don't want to say this as a trigger, but being around toxic people. I think Anissa also mentioned about being around people who treat you badly, and you feel a certain way. after that, yeah, because obviously they're definitely trying to put you down. And you also part of the panel has mentioned that, you know, spending too much time alone can be both good and bad, and maybe we need to also discuss that. We've talked a lot of self-care, but what if I already spend a lot of time alone? Is that going to be a trigger? Is that something that I need to be wary of when already, you know, I'm trying to self-care, self-medicate, if I may put it that way. But anyway, yeah, hopefully we'll discuss that a bit more. I think we've talked a lot on therapy and traumas, especially childhood traumas. So just to move things on a bit, Amisa, could you tell us some of the mental health disorders and what are the early signs of detection? Also, are there drugs that can help with this, or is therapy definitely a better alternative?
Okay, so thank you. So just to, before I answer that question, to just add on the previous point of how
Sure.
workspaces are creating, you can hear me?
Yes, we can, Amisa.
Okay. So just to add a point on how workspaces can create a better space, I've worked with several organizations or institutions whereby they're really into their employees getting the necessary mental health and psychosocial support and creating the rooms and offering accessible mental health services and finding ways in which they can cater for their mental health plan. But the thing is, it is everybody's responsibility. It cannot be the work of the employers alone, because you find in most cases, if the employees are not aware of the importance of their mental health, and you end up creating them facilities that can enable them, let's say, to scream, offer them readily available, accessible counselors or for psychosocial support or mental health support, you find that it won't be utilized to the best of, it won't be utilized fully. Because if I'm not aware that these are the facilities that I'm supposed to use, so why should I use them, or why should I even engage them? So I think as we are thinking of also creating the safe spaces for our employees or colleagues at the working space, we should also make sure that they have knowledge and understanding of basic mental health. And that is why even for me as an individual or as an organization, a Vision Foundation, we just, when we work with certain organizations, we just don't go there and just say we want to offer counseling. One of our rules is that we need to offer basic mental health sessions whereby we have talks with different departments, different teams on mental health, so that they understand what mental health is. And then after that is now whereby they can be able to know these are the facilities for this and this and this, and this is the available mental health resources that I can use to make my workplace or my work easier. So it's also, it's not a one way, it's two ways. Like as much as organizational institutions are providing the psychosocial support, the people involved should also be knowledgeable or have basic understanding of what mental health is, so that they can be able to utilize opportunities. Okay, another aspect to when it comes to mental illnesses or mental disorders, we tend not to avoid those words. It's so wide, but I'll just classify it into very, very simple understanding, so that at least any person coming out of this forum can be able to understand some mental illnesses without really like thinking of the hard words and thinking of how hard it is. So this is how it's classified. You see the way physical illnesses, like you'll find that there are respiratory diseases, there are cancerous diseases, there are, what is it called? Heart problems, like it's classified. It's also the same with mental health. So with the mental health, there's classification. So the first classification are usually mood disorders. So mood disorders, like from the word, they just come from the word mood. So that means that they affect their moods. And I think the longest misconception we have ever had is that women are more moody. But one thing is that for as long as you're a human, you have hormones. And for as long as you have hormones, you may have hormonal imbalances, which may end up causing you to be moody or not to be moody. So it may interfere with your emotions, their hormones. So I think now we are moving from the place of women have more emotions, women wanakuwaga na kisirani sana, but knowing that as human beings, I have emotion, because understanding that it gives spaces for other people to also express their emotion, or for us to understand them and give them space when they are going through a particular time or when they are having hormonal imbalances. So for mood disorders, so the first one is mood disorders. It has categories. So the main ones that usually talked about are depression and what is it called, bipolar. So bipolar diseases. So for mental illnesses, that is. So for depression, you find that it's a mood disorder because it's your moods, like it deals with your hormones. You know, with depression, we know depression is a constant period of sadness, that even if I do the things that I love, I eat the things that I love most, like I engage with whatever normally makes me happy, I just don't feel happy. Like there's just constant sadness and hollow feeling that I'm feeling like deep in my heart, and I cannot explain why. So that is because of the mood disorder. And also bipolar. So bipolar, you find that it has two phases. So there is the depressive phase and the maniac phase. So the manic phase or the maniac phase is when you find yourself that you have so much, what is it called, activity. Like you may come across individuals who one day, or not one day, like a period of 1 week or several days or month, they're so happy, like they're go-getters, they can do like everything, their roles, like they're on top of their game. And then you find that after some time they're slacking, they cannot even get up to brush the teeth or just open the laptop or just type a word or just reply to calls. So when you see that, and as much as they try, as much as you tell them, write a routine, stop being lazy, do this, time management, you try to give them all external resources. At the end of the day, we have to realize that when it is when it is bipolar or mental illness under the mood disorder, like you cannot control it. So the good thing about this, once it is hormonal, that means that you can get medications to help balance your hormones, and then you can get psychosocial or counseling support. So that means you get antidepressants or medicines that can help you balance your hormones, so that at least after that you can be in a sober state to get the psychosocial support. So the first one is mood disorder. So the second one is anxiety disorders. So anxiety, you find that I'm just going to mention the main common ones that usually affects us, that we can be also in the lookout for ourselves, for other individuals. So for anxiety disorder, you might like for anxieties, it's the constant, again, it's normal to feel anxious, it's normal to feel sad in depression, but when it is constant over 12 days, you find that now is when you can start turning it as a mental health challenge. Because with anxiety, it's normal, like if I'm going for job interview, if I'm going to do presentation in front of people, it's normal to have that anxious feeling. But when the anxiety is overdue for a long period of time, that means that I'm starting to develop anxiety disorder. And for it has also several types. There is the anxiety disorder in itself, the one of feeling anxious. There's also the aspect of having phobias, whereby, like, because of the irrational thinking that you're having, like you tend to find yourself that I'm scared of heights, or I'm scared of water, or I have phobias of different things, and of insects, or of this. Other people have it, other people don't have it. So the only time when the phobias now go, now like you need to like really look into them, is that when they started affecting your personal life. I may have the fear of heights, and it's not actually affecting my personal life. But when it's affecting my life is that I'm supposed, let's say, or I have a fear of oceans or water or insects, have fear of oceans. So, but my work, I'm supposed to go to Lamu, and they've totally refused to get into the boat, because going from Mombasa to Lamu, from Lamu to Lamu Island, there is no other way that I need to use a boat. So at the end of the day, the feeling that I'm feeling it's actually affecting my professional life and my personal life. So when you reach at a place whereby the phobias or the mental illnesses are affecting your personal life, you know, okay, this is a sign that I need to go and seek. It is a must that I need to seek mental health and professional support. So I've mentioned mood disorders, I've mentioned anxiety disorders. The third one, it's what is it called? Drugs and substance addictions, which I had already mentioned before, and all types of addiction that falls under it. The other one are eating disorders. Eating disorders, you find that people are built differently. And this is what I keep on saying, going back to self-awareness. how self-aware am I to the extent I know that I'm a stress eater, or I tend to avoid eating when I'm stressed up, or when I'm in a pressured environment. So you have like to really know yourself. For instance, some people actually, and for food disorder, why it's linked to mental health is because it's at the back of your mind. You're telling yourself, except for the people who have anorexia nervosa, who like once they eat anything, they force their body system to make it like to take out whatever they've eaten, either by choking themselves so that they can vomit the food that they've eaten, because at the back of their mind that they've just what is it called, made themselves believe that in order for me to be beautiful or to appear a certain way, I need to reduce weight, and the only way I can reduce weight is to avoid food entering my body. So you find that they end up having anorexia, like developing that disorder. Or some people, when you come from a thick family, you find that because you've been bullied throughout, people making comments about how you look or how you're increasing weight or you have so much body fat, you find that due to that you want to reduce it, and the only way you reduce it, you think it's by through that. So that is a mood disorder, and the only way that you can go through it, it's going through mental health support, whereby you tend to understand, like, okay, I need to separate myself, like understanding where you're coming from. Like the reason as to why I started developing food disorder is because I associate food with being unhealthy. So that is why I'm here. Then it can help you to find ways in which you can support yourself. The other type of disorder is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which is usually from the trauma. And trauma I've mentioned is like everybody experiences trauma differently. So as much as you would want to experience trauma, and as much as you've experienced trauma in different way, you know that once you've experienced trauma, as I've said before, your body won't forget that traumatic event until you address it. So you need to find ways in which you can be able to accept that this event, hata kama inaonekana, you may be telling people that ili nifanyikia and I'm still scared of going to such places, and people are like, kwani, what is wrong with you? But for you, you know the deepness or how much it has affected you. So it's also upon you to take responsibility, because people are not you at the end of the day. You are the one who only know the graveness of the situation. So that means that you are the only person who know how you can get the necessary support, either personally or through psychosocial support, mental health support, to save yourself. Another one is personality disorder. So personality disorder is very, very wide. And yeah, so with personality disorder, but one thing, we all know we have personalities, right? Like personalities are basically who we are. And it's just, it is what we are compromised of. Like you cannot exist without your personality unless you have personality disorder. Now, the advantage of most of mental illnesses is that they have medication. That's the good thing about it. Like if you go in time, even psychosis, which I'll mention after it, like they all have like mental, what is it called? Psychosocial, like they have medication you can heal from them. Now, the challenging part are personality disorders because they affect your personality. Let's say, for instance, there are different personality disorders, and the one that affects people the most, like the cases that nowadays we get a lot, are either people coming from narcissistic, what is it called? People having narcissistic personality disorder, or borderline personality borderline disorders. Because you find, for instance, with the narcissistic personality disorders, narcissists are the individuals who they are very controlling in all aspects. They are very loving and charming until you get to know them at a personal level. They can emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, all kind of drain you. Like they literally drain you. Like if you're in their space, they drain you. But the funny thing is that they are so well endowed in professional spec, career-wise, look-wise, like they are so good in certain aspects that if I come to, let's say, somebody and tell them, you know, even as a HR, let's say, I've had the test before, this and this person does this and this and this, because they are two-faced and they have two personalities. You find that for some people, they are so good, like to the extent if I come and tell you, this person did this and this and this to me, you'll be like, apana. They can't, like, I've never seen that part of me, you see. So they also use gaslighting, whereby they make you feel like you're a victim, like you are the crazy one or the stupid one for raising allegations against them. And they usually have a support system of people supporting them. So even if they hurt you, they harm you, and they cause so much damage, because a lot of people sometimes are in counseling throughout their lifetime because of one interaction with a narcissistic individual. So personality disorders are, I usually say they are it. Like once an individual, you come across an individual who has personality disorders, let's say narcissistic, because ziko nyingi, narcissistic. So narcissistic, you come across an individual like that, the best thing to do is not to engage with them, not to get involved with them, and not try to argue with them back. Because you may find that for them, they get power through hurting other people. They get happiness, or they get their inner well, I don't know, being fulfilled because of having another person. And even if you argue with them, they'll outsmart you. They're that good in everything. So it's upon you to decide, okay, there's some people, as a human being, you just have to come to an understanding that I'm a human being. Some people like me, some people don't like me. That's okay. I also like some people and I don't like some people. But when it comes to a place whereby engaging with certain individuals tend to really affect my mental well-being, to the extent of some people even wanting to commit suicide, that means that this is a completely red flag, like completely. Zile red flag nyingi tunekaga kwa memes siku hizi, that's the red flag. So like you need, and you know one thing about narcissistic, it's a personality disorder, you won't heal them. Yeah. So winding up, I've said mental illnesses are so much, there are a lot, and that those, the ones that I've mentioned, are the ones that are affecting us normally. And just one more, there's the what is it called, psychosis, whereby they're the people we see, and when you're told they're the face of mental illnesses, whereby we see people when wazimu, in short, people walking on the street, they're sleeping on garbages and all those kind of things. But most of the thing is that they have faces and they have cure. So knowing all this, the reason as to why I mention all this is because you can either go and try to understand more on their own, but not telling yourself, like, what is it called? Not being your own doctor and saying, okay, Anissa said this and I read this on Google, that means I have this disorder, or this person has this disorder. No, the reason I'm saying is so that you can have awareness and be able to understand ourselves and offer spaces for people who may have those challenges and help them seek more psychosocial or mental health support. So I'll give it back to the hosts as we are winding up the session.
Thank you so much, Amisa. I like that you're saying that, you know, we need to have community conversations taking place across, you know, the organization, in our families, across the country, and give people a chance to learn more about mental health issues, you know, by people participating in these conversations. We are hoping that, or rather, by people participating in these conversations and discuss issues related to mental health of young people, and decide how they can take action to improve their mental health in their families, schools, and communities. I see time is far much spent. So let me just, maybe panelists, you can be writing for us some of the resources that you can share with the attendees, for them to just go and, you know, utilize some of these things that we have talked about. I will also be sharing mine, whether it's blogs, podcasts, apps. Do share that in the chat kindly, panelists, and also anyone in the Zoom meeting, you can also share that. I see a question. Please shoot all your questions in the chat. I just have 2 more questions to go, and then we'll visit the questions in the chat. So in a technology environment, and we are saying that, yes, cybersecurity is a challenging and demanding industry. And we're also acknowledging how the best position to win is when the employees are happy and engaged, as well as when they have a proper work-life balance. So maybe Cephas and Michael, as the IT people, as the part of the workforce, and also from a strategic point of view, could you tell us, and I know you have mentioned this, but how can we effectively protect our mental wellness in a competitive environment? Because that is what it is, and that is what cybersecurity is. Also, you can also tell us how to deal with failure in a healthy manner.
Now, let me start off with dealing with failure.
Sure.
I think personally for me, what I learned with failure through playing my video games is that you need to find the fun in failure. And it really shows itself, especially in the cybersecurity space. You could be trying something and it doesn't work. The result you get could help you later on in the future to probably understand something better. If it's some analysis of malware, or if you are looking at network traffic, you may have missed something, but the failure builds on your experience. And that kind of experience of failure also builds your resilience within the industry. So I think it's accepting that failure is part of the job role. It's an essential part, because it builds your experience. Two, it helps you deal with unplanned events and circumstances. Moving on to just how best to deal with mental wellness, especially in such a very competitive space. I think it starts off again back to the employers. They create such a competitive space. For a competitive job market to exist, probably there are a lot of experts out there, and the positions are fewer. And then the employers then have the advantage of putting up whatever terms they would want during employment. So it's either you take it or you leave it. So I think we need more responsible, probably benefits, and more responsible employers and organizations to come up and say, as much as this is a competitive space, we are going to allow you certain breaks. Probably if you're running a security operations center, you could have 2 shifts, as opposed to having someone work 12, 16 hours a day, have them work 8 hours, then have someone else come in 8 hours, have another person come in for another 8 hours, and that covers the entire 24 hours. So it's that would promote mental health. Again, also as cybersecurity practitioners, just having a group, however small, 2, 3, 5, or as big as you would want to get it, where you're able to talk about the industry, talk about the challenges and how people are handling the different challenges. And this actually lets you see what else is going on out there, and also puts you at ease, because probably, for example, you may not be good at cryptography, and it's been bothering, it's been stressing you, but when you find other practitioners who you look up to as sort of mentors or people you aspire to be like, and they've survived probably without cryptography or without another aspect of cybersecurity, because there's so much, you really can't be a jack of all trades or a master of all things. You probably have just a unique specialization somewhere. It also puts you at ease, so that when something new comes out there in the industry, you're not then thinking, I have to lose 2 hours of my day learning this new thing so that I remain competitive. Just pick your niche, pick a close circle that can help you, that can take a breather with you, take a breather. Understand that failure is not the end. If you fail, you get up, you continue. And again, if you can actually find the fun in failure, it really does build your resilience to probably what in the future will become harder challenges. I think that's all from me.
Okay.
Yes, proceed, Cephas.
Okay, great. So 2 points. One, in summary of what Michael has said, I love using this quote, there's no true failure. And that what essentially means is that every failure is an opportunity to not only learn, but to pivot. So how you use that failure going forward is very, very important. So essentially have the mindset of failing forward. Secondly, in terms of keeping healthy, in a rapidly moving space, I do think that you'd want to focus on doing what you can, doing all that you can, and what you cannot do, just let it go, and this, in leadership, they call it circle of influence. So play within your circle of influence. If you need to improve, if you need to self-develop, know your gaps, and do all that you can to fill them. And I'm saying this from a high level, knowing that Michael has given some few tactical things to do. So just try and focus on all that you do, and build your own path. Build your own path, build your own portfolio. If you start comparing yourself too much with others, you might end out getting stressed, which is a natural path. So just try and build your own path, try and build your own niche, try and improve yourself in your own way. But you're always free to borrow ideas and borrow tactics from other people. I will emphasize on the aspect of some sort of support group that Michael had mentioned, and I think this is for mental health specifically. I think it's a great idea to have a sector-based mental health support group, which is basically a group of peers coming together to vent, to share out their frustrations, and from my mental health perspective, I think that's an important thing. I know we have groups out there, but they're more professional in that sense, and mostly core subject matter. But I think a mental health support group is an interesting intervention, considering what you're seeing out there. And if I can narrow it down to cybersecurity, we know that mental health is really affecting everyone in all places, in all sectors, in all fields, and all that. But we know for sure that cybersecurity individuals are really susceptible to mental health situations. Remember that security fundamentally is built on issues of security and safety, and mental security and safety is something that all of us need in life. So the foundations of safety and security, and how we're experiencing threats and attacks, and the stresses and the type of work and the amount of work involved in cybersecurity, essentially means that security folks are really susceptible to high levels of mental health situations. So it's important that we have some sort of industry support groups for this, and I look forward to an individuals or a couple of individuals setting such spaces out in our local communities. I'm going to be sharing some links in the chat section, a bunch of links related to mental health and security, and I hope you can check out those links. I know there's some interesting projects in other ecosystems that have started to come up in terms of aligning these two areas, cybersecurity and mental health, together in a way that builds the knowledge, the tribal knowledge, transfers knowledge from the mental health space into security, and seeing how the two industries can support each other. And as a final thing, again, similar to health, security has foundations in education, awareness, prevention, issues of early interventions. So when people develop, let's say, a daily habit of keeping well, they build stronger foundations for cybersecurity and for cyber resilience. And I know resilience is a big issue in security right now. So I'll throw a statement out there that I think all of us can take home and start sort of sharing out in our circles. That cybersecurity starts with mental security. Thanks, Sherry.
I love that. I love it, definitely. So as we are coming to the end of this session, I don't know if this, if I can just throw this out there. I hope this is the last question I'm going to ask on based on the ones that had been shared previously. But what are the suggestions that you have for talking about suicide, mental health, with people who attach stigma to these issues? Maybe as a conversation starter, just coming from what Cephas has mentioned, how, and I think Amisa, you're in a better position to tell us. And we talked about stigma and all that. So how do we, talk to people who attach mental health issues and stigma around that?
If I got the question, if I got the question right, is we are trying to, it's about breaking the stigma of mental illnesses, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the best thing about, the best and the most important thing about creating stigma is normalizing the conversation, having the conversation and normalizing mental health conversation without the need of feeling that it is a taboo. Like, for instance, the only way, like currently, we got to people speaking about menstrual health and menstrual hygiene is like it became a normal topic that to some people is no longer a taboo. So the same thing with mental health, like normalizing the conversation. And one funny thing about mental health, which is actually interesting, is that once you start speaking about it, there is no way you will lack somebody who has either gone through the same experience or has seen somebody close to them gone through the same experience. So there is always people who have gone through the same experience and we want to talk more about it. But the only way that we can actually go about it is starting the conversation and carrying it out the conversation to the extent that it is normal. It is normal for me to come and tell somebody that the reason I'm not performing today, well, the reason because I'm maybe procrastinating at work and I need extra motivation, it's because I have ADHD, and the person won't judge me and start thinking that I'm losing my mind. Like, I'm also creating that safe space to have the conversation. So normalizing the conversation, creating safe space, and looking back at ourselves and saying, how much do I know about mental health and how much can I be able to accommodate somebody if they come and tell me they have a mental illness? Because we can be so good at saying, oh, we need to create more awareness of mental health and breaking the stigma against mental illness. But when somebody comes to us and tell us they're going through this and this and this, are we there to open up the space for them to speak out without judging them? Are we there to hold their hands when they're getting the necessary support that they need? Are we there to be safe spaces for them? So that is a question that we should also ask ourselves personally, at personal level. How well educated or how well do I have the knowledge, understanding, and empathy to accept and acknowledge individuals who have mental health and offer them the support without feeling that they owe me something or they need to act a certain way so that I can support them.
Thank you, Amisa. Doreen?
Thank you, Shay. I would like to speak on taking rest, especially taking advantage of, we all have, depending on the organization, but normally it's 21 days of annual leave in a year. That amounts to about a month. So it's very important to take this annual leave and to take it religiously. when you go on leave, if you have 2 phones or 2 lines, you can put off 1 line and say, this is my time to rest. I've been working for the last 2 or 3 months and non-stop. I need some time to be by myself, be with my family, be with my friends, do what makes me happy. So it is important to take your annual leave, to take an off day to go and just be away from the work environment, which at times is very stressful. So I would say take advantage of that. It is your right. No one would stop you from doing it, as long as you follow the correct protocol as you engage in it.
Thank you, Doreen. I think we've talked far and wide about the importance of, just taking a break, some of the boundaries that can help you stay productive, identifying and managing burnout. So I think we talked a lot about this at the beginning of this session, and I hope that it is there's something new that you have learned, and it is knowledge that you can also take within as an individual and share with a friend or a colleague that, now you're in a better position to see some of the tell signs of or triggers of some of these mental illnesses, and ensuring that we are in the right place mentally. I see Safas has shared his resources. There are quite a lot. Yeah. There was also a question in the chat. I don't know who should take this one, but how does one handle a toxic environment? We talked about toxic people, but then what about the environment? Doreen, you want to take this one?
That's okay, Shay. Because toxic work environment, if it's not the people, I would say it's what is around you, the physical space that is around you. If whoever asked the question can be more elaborate on the chat box, but what I would say is probably not having the right equipment or the right resources for you. Not having the right resources around you, or not. Hello, Shay.
Yes, I'm there. Sorry for that.
Okay, no problem. Not having the correct resources around you to be able to perform your work. That is what I would say would be a negative or a toxic work environment. This is excluding the people aspect. You need to, first of all, I would say, understand why the particular resources are not being given to you, because I believe no employer would deny you probably a laptop or a server which is going to enable you to meet the organization's objectives. So there must be a reason as to why these things are being held. Maybe it could be financial reasons. It could be it's not the right time, it's not what they had projected to do at this particular time, or this quarter of the year, of this particular time of the year. So another thing is probably the environment. I'm sure all organizations have what do you say? It's a clean environment, I believe. Sure, I think I would ask the person to elaborate what they meant by a toxic work environment, if it's not the people. So I believe where we are, in the environment we are working in, is very conducive.
Okay. For the person who had asked the question, if you're in a position to ask the question, please unmute yourself. You should do that now. I'm also opening the floor for anyone who has a burning question that you would want addressed by the panel. been a very knowledgeable session. So if there are no questions, or the person who asked about the work environment is not here, kindly you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or just raise the hand and I'll, unmute you if you're having issues with that. Also on YouTube, I see some people who are there. If you have any questions, you can just type them in the chat, and I'll share that with the panel. So maybe as guys are typing in their questions in the chat, Michael, maybe you can give us your parting shot so that we can just start preparing to close this session. Time has moved really, really quick. Okay, sorry. Amisa, do you want to give us your parting shot? I know you need to leave shortly.
Yes. So first of all, I'll want to thank you guys, the ICRAL and all the guys organizing the Cybersecurity Week and Month. So for just considering the aspect of how mental health is important and bringing the conversation around it, and also from my panelists, whereby I've really learned from them on a lot of things in regards to mental health, especially from the cybersec and from the HR perspective. And my parting shot will be that when it comes to mental health, there is no bargaining it. Like the way you take care about your physical health, there is no bargain when it comes to your mental health. And I know a lot of people tend to complain, oh, mental health services are usually cheap, are usually expensive and what. But if you really, really, really like go and look into it, you'll find that the most mental health institutions that offer counseling services or other mental health are relatively cheap. Is that we've not given that much importance to mental health, and not cheap, I'm sorry to say, but affordable. And if we really want to change the perspective, the face of prioritizing mental health, we need to be intentional about allowing us to access these services and telling ourselves that the way I take care of my physical health is also important, to put the same attention towards my mental health. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amisa. It was a pleasure having you. I know this was a long time coming, and we're definitely hoping to have more sessions around mental health as we normalize talking about mental health. Thank you so much. Sylvia Church, can you unmute yourself now and ask your question? Doreen,
I think she's typed it on the chat box.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sylvia, for that. I think the first thing would be to talk to either a colleague that you have at your office, ask them, how can we solve the issue? Secondly, it would be to talk to the direct supervisor. So if it's he'll be able to assist you. If that is not that doesn't work, definitely your HR is in a position to assist you. So I think being aware of the channels that you can use to get assistance, to get help, is also something that is critical. So we have your line managers, you have your HR around to assist if you have any problems. So maybe that's a conversation we can pick up with Sylvia after this and see what the issue is.
Definitely, Doreen. Do take that up offline. Your parting shot?
My parting shot would be brave enough to stand up for yourself, because you'd be the first person to see any changes within yourself. So be brave enough, be courageous enough to stand up for yourself, and also be very conscious of the decisions that you make, because whatever you do right now will definitely affect you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So be brave and be conscious of your decision making.
Thank you, Doreen. Michael.
Yeah, my parting shot would be just take that first step. I think it's important we break the stigma. So whichever environment you're in, take the first step to start an open and honest discussion. It could be a 2-minute discussion today. Eventually, it will grow to something bigger, and that change will finally come into effect.
Thank you so much, Michael. Cephas?
Shay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so let me take it into part. One is overall. Guys, let's just take it easy. Let's take it easy. Let's try and go with the flow. Life is short. Now you're here, now you're not. So just take it easy and take it one stride at a time. You'll get there. Secondly is mental health and security. Again, cybersecurity relies on mental health. Yeah. I know this is an area of research, is still growing. We have psychologists and security guys trying to understand it. But cybersecurity can be impacted by mental health. So if you're a security professional, try and take care of yourself, because it will definitely have an impact on your work. And remember, your work is important. You're on a mission to protect the society. So take care of yourself, because you're a line of defense. We need you. The society needs you. As well, cybersecurity attacks have an impact on professionals and also the victims as well. So at any point in time, if you're working, try and know that if there are incidences, there are chaos going around, and you're right in the middle of it, it can take a toll. It can impact you in different ways. So try and take care of yourself again as a defender. If you're a victim at any point in time, please seek help. I mean, I'm just thinking it might not be strange at some point for someone to go to the hospital and during examination, we're talking with the doctor. The doctor asks them, what happened to you? And they say, I was hacked. That is a patient telling a doctor that I was hacked. My identity was stolen, and the story goes on, and I got here. I'm just thinking it wouldn't be a surprise in the near future we have such kind of statements in medical examination. So it's important if you feel you're a victim of cyber attacks, or you've been threatened online and stuff like that, please try and find some help. Talk to some psychologists. If you can't, talk to someone who you think can help, and hopefully that help can start from there onwards. So thanks, Shay, for having us on, and we've had this conversation before with Mike and a bunch of other people, and hopefully we can keep having it. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. I do have a couple of parting shots. One is, don't answer the emails on weekends. We have been told, take time to actually have that work-life balance that we have discussed. Lead by example, take short breaks in the day, take holidays, utilize your leave. Two, consider having a walk, a daily walk. I know this might sound strange for people who are not driving, but it's an intentional walk. So you're going to clear your mind. It's okay. It can also be within your house, but also try and go outside for some fresh air. Breathe deeply, breathe from your stomach and not just from your upper chest. The third thing is allow time for yourself. And these are things that we have discussed during this session. Allow time for yourself, find a hobby, do something that you enjoy. Michael mentioned he enjoys video games, learn a new musical instrument, go hiking, go traveling, learn a new language. I'm currently learning Chinese, hopefully. In short, just do something that you are passionate about, and this will recharge your physical and emotional batteries. And then last but not least, we talked about, rather, my second last point is we talked about mindfulness. I've shared with you an app that I find is a great alternative to Calm and Headspace, and I believe just goes for 1,000 bob per year. And it has all the facets of, guided meditation, releasing stress, releasing anxiety, sadness, and so on and so forth. So you can consider that as something that you can take up. It's called Better Me Mental Health. So my understanding is it's a conglomerate of apps, and then this one is particularly about mental health. Then the last thing that I would like to reiterate is that if you're struggling with whatever you're struggling with, please talk to a mental health specialist. And it is something that I highly recommend. Talk with your HR, see if your cover, if a psychologist is covered in your, in your insurance. Look for people like Amisa, and I know of other personal coaches and therapists who are also doing this. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a mental health specialist, sorry. But that person, what I'm trying to say is that that person is not trained to not only understand what you're telling them, but also to pass it out from the context through which you are telling them. That is from a wounded state, what Cephas is just from describing. They can extract those details and quickly get to the root cause. And they can also tell you the name of whatever issue it is that you might be experiencing. So as opposed to just Googling and coming up to that conclusion, this person can either affirm it or tell you that no, I think you're on the wrong direction. So this is what you are actually suffering from. So by going through this process and getting that name of the issue is very powerful in that it brings context and you can learn about it and you can be aware about it. And most important of all, is that you can take steps to manage or even resolve it. I hope that this session has been, an encouragement to all of us who suffer from one or two or multiple mental health illnesses. And I'm very grateful for everyone who has also been with us during this Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is also Mental Health Awareness Month. Thank you so much for showing up and contributing to this discussion. Thank you so much, panelists, for also blocking out the time and coming to share with us your insights on this very critical conversation. That said, sina mengi, ni hayo tu kwa sasa. Have a good day, people. Bye.